Good morning, St. Louis, on this crisp, cool morning right here in Missouri. I'm not sure where you're listening from, whether you're listening in the St. Louis area or you are in a whole nother state listening on the Real Talk Radio app. I'm just going to ask you to do me a favor and go to my Facebook page and like my page, or you can even go to YouTube and subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is brand new. There's not a lot on there right now, but you'll get all the latest updates and shows that get put on there and anything additional that I do. It just is a good opportunity to get to know me, get to know what I stand for and the things that I do in my life. You're not going to regret it, I promise. I mean, worst case scenario, you know what you can do? You can unfollow me. You can unlike my page. You can unsubscribe. So it can't hurt to subscribe. You're not going to get anything daily, weekly emails or anything like that. Those things are annoying, by the way. However, it is a way to stay connected with me. And today I do have a little bit of a different show for you today. I know the last couple weeks have been kind of heavy, talking about men and women and their roles and the different things that we deal with in life. But today I got a couple other things that I want to talk about. And if you have a suggestion or you have a comment that you'd like to make, obviously you can do that through the Facebook, or you can text me at 314-924-4215. I have several of you people text me almost every week, just checking in. I appreciate that. But the number again is 314-924-4215. That goes directly to my phone, believe it or not. Now, it is not my personal cell number, of course, but it is a phone number I use for things like this that comes directly to me. And when I get time, I obviously try to respond to those as much as I can. If I get a lot of them, it might take me a little bit. And depending on what you're asking me and depending on what kind of questions you may have would depend on how quick or how much I would get back with you. So let's get the show started in segment one right here. I want to talk to you about something that has been bothering me and has bothered me for quite some time, honestly, and it's the topic on global warming. That's right. You guys have talked about it before. You know what I'm talking about. The ironic thing about the subject, though, when it comes to global warming is we no longer really call it global warming. I think they beat that drum so bad that they've had to change the language to try to get us to think about it some more. And so now the subject has actually changed, and it's now climate change. So we no longer have global warming. We now have climate change. Well, ladies and gentlemen, they've been talking about this particular subject for quite some time, to be honest. And I'm just going to kind of give you my opinion because, again, this is one of those topics, honestly, that you're going to find someone or you're going to find something or you're going to find, an article, whatever it is, that is going to fit your narrative. I'm doing that. I mean, I do not believe in climate change. I do not believe in global warming. I do think the climate changes. There's no doubt. I mean, we're having a climate change right now called fall. The weather is changing. It's getting cooler, not warmer. But so, yeah, climate does change. There's no doubt. We have 4 seasons when it comes to climate. I'm talking about climate change in the aspect of global warming, where people really honestly believe that we're having a global warming in the aspect of our temperature of the earth is changing. Maybe the ocean temperature is rising to a place where they say it is affecting the climate on earth. There's more storms. The hurricanes are stronger, tornadoes, the weather, all these different things, which I think is a load of crap. That's what I'm thinking. I just think it's a load of crap. Listen, we can go way back. We can go back years and years and years ago when it comes to climate. I've actually have some articles here that I've kind of done my own research when it comes to the climates. So like, for instance, we're talking about this hurricane in Florida. That was like one of the worst hurricanes to ever hit Florida. That's absolutely not true. I mean, there was actually a worse hurricane in Florida back in the 1800s, actually. And I mean, there's always going to be something that's worse And sure, we're going to know about things more today because we have better technology. At least they say we do. We can track things. As a matter of fact, I heard with the hurricane in Florida that the technology that they have to give people a warning is actually outdated now. Like it doesn't even really give them what they really need because of the way things change so much. And guys, that just gives me the realization that you can't be God. You cannot know everything. I mean, God is in complete control of everything that goes on, even when it comes to our weather. I just actually did a little Devo with our staff the other day, and I realized this when Jesus in Mark, I believe it's Mark chapter 4, where Jesus calmed the waves and the wind when he was in the boat sleeping, and his disciples were freaking out and they had all this fear, and he wakes up and he says, what are you so fearful about? I mean, you've been with me all this time. You know what I can do. You know that you're going to be okay. But it was really when I started digging in and researching this a little bit more in the aspect of this was one of Jesus's first natural, like when it comes to our resources to the earth itself, this was one of his first miracles where he actually made the winds lie down and be calm. Which, what does that tell you? It tells me that he's in total control of our climate. He's in total control of whatever you want to consider global warming or the ice age. I remember about 20 years ago, they used to talk about we have a new ice age coming. They don't talk about that anymore. Why? Because it was not true. Sure, there's glaciers that are melting. Absolutely. It's going to happen. I mean, you go back hundreds and hundreds of years ago, maybe even thousands of years ago. Some of you might think the earth is, 30, 40,000 or 100,000 year old. I don't believe that. I think the earth is around 5,000 to 6,000 years old, according to my biblical beliefs. And I've seen and I've read where these types of things happen regularly. It's what makes our world the way it is. There's this thing called balance, and when things get out of balance, then the weather changes or something happens, brings us back into balance. But the reality of this is the simple fact that God created this earth for a temporary purpose, and it's all going to be destroyed. And then he's going to recreate a new earth. Some of you don't believe that. Some of you understand what I'm talking about. That's called, through our end times and rapture that's going to take place that we believe. And in that, we are going to have a whole new world created. So this world that we have is designed to be destroyed, which means there are going to be things that are going to happen to it that a lot of people can't understand, but scientists especially think that they can actually decide what is going on, and they think they're playing God for the most part. I do think that Christians, of course, should have a responsibility on this earth. I think Christians should be keeping track of their footprint, so to speak, when it comes to the amount of trash or recyclables that we have. I'm all for recycling, but the reality is I've actually recycled my trash. The trash truck comes, and the same plastics that go into a separate container in my trash can or a whole nother container, and then the trash in another trash can, it all gets dumped into the same trash truck. Now, there used to be different bins, different, sections on the trash truck, but guess what? I've been to the dump site, and I've seen these trucks go and dump everything in the same exact spot. Now, maybe not everybody is that way, but that was my experience. So then it got me to believe we're not really recycling squat. Not when it comes to our trash. So what is all this about? Well, I do believe that we have to be good, responsible citizens. I think we need to be thinking about our footprint. I think we are responsible. God gave us humans to rule over the earth, the land, the animals, and everything that he gave us authority over. And so we do need to make sure that we are taking care of it. However, when an animal becomes more protected than the human, now we have a whole different issue. This is why you see Christians actually getting upset about abortion, because we will protect an eagle or we will protect the eggs of turtles or some other species, but yet we're not protecting the fetus. Now, I know I've kind of gotten off track here, but that's just the way this is. This is a radio show called Unfiltered, and sometimes I'm unfiltered in the direction that I go, and who knows where it's going to go. But here's what I do know is we are going to have to take a break because we are out of time for our first segment. So don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. Go grab your coffee, bring somebody back into the conversation, and we'll be right back here in just a minute. Well, we are back, everybody. Glad to be back. Hopefully you brought somebody with you. We have been talking about global warming, or now it's actually called climate change. I wanted to, before we go into the next segment of this day in history, I did want to just kind of share a couple more things on this climate change situation. I firmly believe that global warming and climate change is nothing but political and all about money. That's what it is. Research that is government funded, where all of our tax dollars are going to something that isn't even real. That's what I believe. Now, if you believe that, if you are on the same page with me when it comes to climate change / global warming, put it in the app. Download the app and talk to me on the app, or you can text me at 314-924-4215. Let me know how you feel about climate change. I don't believe in it. I don't believe in global warming. I know the climate changes. Obviously, I said that earlier. We have spring, summer, fall, and winter. So the climate definitely changes. I just don't think it's at the place of where scientists and the people in those circles think that it's actually causing massive issues in our economy and in our world. I just don't believe that. It's just not enough. Yes, I would say that, the way they measure the Earth's temperature today is very different as it was years ago because our technology has changed, which tells me that they really don't know if the Earth's temperature is higher or lower than what it used to be because of the tools that they use to measure it. The same way with the water, with the ocean levels. And can that have a lot to do with storms and stuff? Absolutely it can. But I don't think it's any worse, and I don't think it's any different than what it's been all these other hundreds and hundreds of years. I just think we're going through one of the seasons that they may have. Anyway, that's my thoughts on it. I mean, I don't know. I just think it's a waste of time. But again, I do think Christians ought to be thinking about their footprint. I think they need to think about what it looks like. I mean, I could go in there. There's tons of scriptures, biblical examples that we can consider when it comes to climate change. Whenever you look at the end times disasters, I mean, Revelation 6 and chapter 6 through 18 is a good one. You can see that in 2 Peter, God actually will erase the current universe and replace it, like I said before, with a new heaven and a new earth. We see that actually in Revelation 21 through 22. There are scriptures that actually show us how God is in control of everything. So I think what this boils down to for me is, listen, there are things in this world where people will allow things to create so much fear in their life that they live out of fear, or they're over here stocking up and stockpiling food and bomb shelters and everything else, because they're doing it out of fear, because they believe what the government and what the media tells them. I'm not saying we shouldn't educate ourselves. I don't want to be ignorant about it. But there's this thing in life called balance. There's nothing wrong with going green. There's nothing wrong with using what the earth has given us for our resources, natural gas, wind, for the electric, the water for electric, whatever it may be. I'm all for that. But when we start changing the way we do things because we're afraid we're not saving the planet, ladies and gentlemen, you're not going to save this planet no matter what you do. It is going to be destroyed one day. 100% guaranteed this planet will be no longer. That doesn't mean we can't be good stewards of what God's given us. We should be. You shouldn't litter. We shouldn't just throw trash wherever. We should think about what we do when we dispose of things. But let's not get to the place where it's absurd and freaking people out and people living in fear. All right, well, that's my thought on climate change. Let me switch gears to this day in history. I looked up this day in history, actually, for the 15th. Since I'm on the radio today, Saturday, October 15th, I looked up this day in history, and there's not really a lot of interesting things that happen on this day. So I went ahead, since I'm on again tomorrow, Sunday, at 8 a.m., October 16th, I thought I would look up that day in history, and that's what I did. And here's what I found. I've never heard of this, but in 1934, on October 16th, there was this thing called the Long March. And this had to do with the Chinese communists, breaking through the nationalist enemy lines, and they began this epic fight from their encircled headquarters in southwest China. And it was known as the Long March. I mean, this thing was a retreat that lasted 368 days, and it covered over 6,000 miles. That is more than twice the distance from New York to San Francisco. That's pretty much across the whole entire United States, there and back, most likely. And there was this civil war that happened in China between the nationalists and the communists. And it broke out in 1927. And then in 1931, the communist leader, Mao Zedong, was elected chairman of the Soviet Republic of China and over one of the provinces there in the southeast part. And that's whenever they launched this series of, campaigns against the Soviet Republic, and they had this massive march. So that's, without going into all that, because, hey, it's China. I don't want to really focus too much on China, but that is something that happened this day in history. Here's a couple other things that took place. In 1995, we had the Million Man March that happened. That was all about, African-American men demonstrating on October the 16th, 1995, called the Million Man March. And it was basically to get rid of negative stereotypes of African-American people is what I'm reading here. There's so many different things that happened back on these days. And, it's kind of interesting when you go back and you actually look at some of the things that took place. Look, in 1923, on October the 16th, Walt Disney Company was founded. Now, back in that day, it was Walt Disney and his brother Roy. They found Disney Brothers Cartoon Studio in Hollywood, California. And that's where it's known now as the Walt Disney Company. And back in those days, man, Walt Disney was awesome what they did for kids. And then, of course, you see what they're doing for kids today. And I wouldn't watch a Walt Disney movie today if you paid me to watch it. There's too many things that are happening in these kids' cartoon movies that are subliminal messages about race and about gender equality and transgenders and it's just they're grooming kids in such a negative way. But hey, in 1923, I can imagine right now Walt is rolling over in his grave. I can guarantee you, if he knew what was going on with his company that he founded, he would be rolling over in his grave. I have a couple more before we end. We're getting ready to take another commercial break. But in 1996, a stampede killed 84 people at a World Cup match. That's not really encouraging. And then, of course, I don't remember this, but in 1987, it says that baby Jessica was rescued from a well as the world watches. I kind of remember that a little bit. I was definitely old enough to remember it. But it looks like she was trapped for 58 hours in an abandoned well in Midland, Texas. And it happened actually on the morning, the drama unfolded on the morning of the 14th, but I guess they rescued her on the 16th. So that's this day in history, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be right back in the next segment with our middle third segment of meat and potatoes. You're not going to want to go anywhere. We're going to be talking about how our criminal judicial system is jacked up. What can we do about it? And what do we need to know? Come back. You'll find out here in just a few minutes. All right, we're back from the break, and we're going to go ahead and go into our third segment, and I call that our meat and potato segment. You're probably like, what in the world? That just sounds goofy. Well, it is goofy. That's why it's called meat and potatoes, because you'll always remember it as meat and potato segment. I love meat and potatoes. It's a hearty, healthy meal. And that's what kind of information I want to give you right now. And I actually want to talk about America's criminal justice system. This is a big topic. And listen, there's obviously probably 100 different ways we could go about this. And I'm sure there's 100 or thousands of different ideas of what could make our system better. I've read multiple articles on our criminal justice system. And I just think, man, oh man, you look at other countries and you look at their jails and you look at their prisons and America. Yeah, we have a lot of people, no doubt, but there are other countries that have way more people than we do. And for some reason, we lead the way in how many criminals we have locked up. As a matter of fact, I read an article that was published in 2022, just recently. And it said that there were, this article came out April of 2022. And let's see if I can, I don't even know technically. It's legalscoops.com is where I found the article. And it basically is just talking about an outdated, unfair criminal justice system. And it's resulting in devastating consequences for crime prevention and rehabilitation and fair justice in the United States. And I could agree with some of those. But I'm going to give you my opinion in an unfiltered way about how I feel about some of this. But here's some of the statistics that I read just several months ago. It says the United States has almost 7 million people under a correctional control. There some type of correctional control at some level, making it the world leader. Not the world leader. In every country in the world, we have the most people that are incarcerated. And out of the 7 million, 2.2 million of them are serving sentences, at the rate, either it's probation, parole, or under some type of community surveillance. 2.2 million of them. It says here that it is estimated that 100 million people have some type of criminal record. That blows my mind that there's that many people that have a criminal record. I mean, what does that criminal record look like? There's probably, obviously, a lot of different just minor incidences, of course. But there is some massive consequences to what we're dealing with when it comes to the crime. What causes crime here in the U.S.? What causes crime anywhere? There's obviously a root cause of crime. I mean, the root cause of crime for me is sin. I mean, from a biblical perspective, sin is something that is bad, right? And we should, that's one, obviously, but there's sin in the world. So there's going to be crime. I mean, the enemy is out to steal, kill, and destroy, and he uses people to do it. If it wasn't for people, the enemy wouldn't get his things, he wouldn't be able to do what he does, destroying people's lives. But I do believe there are some complex and interrelated things that can be summarized into three main categories of what causes crime. I mean, let's face it, economics, is a huge factor when it comes to crime. Poverty. Those are economics and poverty. That's the same kind of thing. Those do have a massive amount of a reason why crime happens. When you look at crime, a lot of crime happens in the inner cities or impoverished areas because, they're doing what they can to get money, right? They're stealing, they're murdering, to get the next high, whatever. The next thing would be social environment, where they grew up. In what area are they growing up? Again, when you look at crime across the world, or at least in the United States, let's just stick there, the social environment of those people committing the crimes matter. And then, of course, the third way would be family, which to me should be the number one factor. Family is the number one factor. If you remember a few weeks ago, I talked about fatherless homes. When the father's not present, moms, this doesn't mean you're not important. You are important. You're very important. You play a specific role that dads can't play. However, when the dad is not in the home, when there's no dad in the home, the crime rate just quadruples to the amount. It's unreal how high crime goes up because no dad in the home. I mean, there's issues in the family. There's nothing being taught, respect and honor and just morals in general. One of the other things that's not on this list that I really think about, and again, maybe some of you aren't going to agree with it, and that's completely okay, but I just think people get off way too easy with their crimes. I think if our system was way more strict and we didn't pay people, lawyers and judges to get us off the crime, and I'm talking more severe stuff, because what doesn't make sense to me is, okay, I get it. You get a speeding ticket, you can pay money to get it knocked down to a non-moving violation, and so you pay 3 times the amount of money, but it's no longer on your record. Your insurance doesn't go up. You have a clean record. Or, busted taillight, or maybe your tags on your car, are expired, or maybe you're not wearing a seatbelt, whatever. Then you start getting into maybe the ones like drinking and driving. Now all of a sudden, again, people that drink and drive, I know people that have literally been caught multiple times. They go to jail, they get out, they're on probation, they get out, they got to go to a class that teaches them, how to be more responsible, but then they get out, and then guess what? They go back and do the same thing again, and it's like 4 or 5 times until they finally kill somebody drinking and driving. And then I've even seen it where that even in itself, people aren't convicted. Can you imagine, just for a moment, just let me help you out for a minute. Can you imagine if literally, if the law was you went to jail for drinking and driving and they could prove it? All right, we're all innocent till proven guilty, which is another thing our world has completely changed. Now you're guilty before you're innocent. You got to prove your innocence now. It didn't used to be that way. And now you got to prove your innocence. Trust me, I know, because I was going through a legal battle about something with my business, and they were wanting me to prove my innocence. And I just think that's it's just crap. I shouldn't have to prove my innocence. You need to prove me guilty of something. That's what you need to do. If you think I'm guilty, prove it. Otherwise, I'm innocent until proven guilty. That's a huge factor in our judicial system that is completely messed up, is now we have to prove ourselves innocent. That is not the way this thing was set up, and I think it's jacked up. But in any case, if you prove that a person has been drinking and driving, they should go to jail. Now, how long do they go to jail? I don't know what the guidelines are, because, I don't know if anybody knows except attorneys what the guidelines are if you get caught for drinking, because most people get off scot-free. Sure, they go to court. Sure, they might have to serve 10 days in jail, 30 days in jail, depending on the attorney you have, depending on the judge you have, depending on how many times you've been caught. Can you imagine, though? Just imagine for a moment, if you got caught drinking and driving and they proved you wrong and you went to jail automatically for 2 years. That's it. You got caught. There's no parole. There's no paying money to get you off at all. You just busted and you're going to jail for 2 years no matter what. Can you imagine if you started doing that? Sure, in the very beginning, people would think, oh, that's not going to happen. I can get away with it. But as soon as you start realizing the word gets out that you can't get away with it, I can tell you right now, it's going to change people's minds on how much they go out and drink and drive. But right now, people go out, they do drugs, they get busted for having drugs. They go to court, they're just constantly pushing their court dates back. The jail houses are so full, nowhere to put them. It's crazy to me how our judicial system works and how many people get off of the crimes that they commit. Now, I'm saying that because, I haven't had any massive crimes against me, but I'm just saying I don't ever want to go to jail. I'm actually fearful to go to jail. Just fearful of what that would feel. I don't even want to be locked up in a 10 by 10 room where I can't get out and have freedom. So you can bet your butt that I am definitely not going to do anything intentional. I'm not going to knowingly risk my life of being in jail. No matter what, I don't care if I have the chance to maybe fight it. I'm still not going to do it. One, I'm not going to do it because that's not who I am. Two, I'm not going to do it because I'm afraid to do it. And probably the most important reason why I'm not going to do it is because I want to live my life according to the standards of who God is and what he expects of me to how to live my life. That doesn't mean I'm perfect. That just means I want to be a responsible citizen. I want to be a responsible Christian citizen. But these factors do matter when it comes to crime. I mean, police officers don't even have the right anymore to arrest people. It's like there's fear now to arrest somebody because everybody's got their cameras out because they're so stinking disrespectful when a police officer asks them a question. And I know some of you will say, well, that's not, my right is this, my right is that. Listen, if you're not guilty of anything, what do you care? What do you care just to roll down your window? What do you care to step out of your car? What do you care? What is it going to hurt if you're innocent? Now, are there corrupt cops? Are there cops that, assert their authority and they have authority issues on their own and so they literally do things they shouldn't do? Absolutely. We see it frequently. But again, it's not every single police officer that does that. There are absolutely good police officers out there trying to defend and protect our world. We want to have a safe environment that we walk into. I want my kids to feel safe when they go places because our enforcement, our law enforcement is doing the right things. There needs to be structure. There needs to be more structure in how we handle these things and not allowing people just to get off of every single crime that they commit. That's just my perspective. That's just my opinion. Obviously, we need to start with the family unit. We need to start raising our children on how to respect their elders. We need to start raising our children on how they respect authority and their boss, whether they're older than them or not. If you have a boss that's younger than you, you should still honor them and respect them because they're in an authoritative position. And people don't do it. That's just one part. And then people have entitlement. Well, I'm entitled to this. You can't do that. I'm entitled to this, which is another huge issue when it comes to our system. I'm reading some of these articles, and one of them says that one of the biggest problems that we have that's outdated in our U.S. criminal system today is law enforcement and policing. I can agree. Like this one example right here is somebody actually created a law against people wearing baggy pants. Can you imagine enforcing the law, just like they tried to make it a law that you're going to get in trouble with with COVID not wearing a mask? Can you imagine trying to police that? It's absolutely ridiculous. Listen, if somebody wants to wear their pants halfway down, hanging out, and their butts hanging out, give them a ticket for indecent exposure, if anything. But to arrest them, all we're doing is causing more issues, which is exactly what our government wants to do. They want to control everything we do. Listen, we got to take a break. I'm not going to end this conversation. We'll be right back here in just a minute. We're going to carry out this conversation. Don't go nowhere. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back from the break, and we've been talking about our judicial system, our criminal judicial system being messed up or maybe even outdated. And I had kind of ended the last segment on about how there were police officers trying to give tickets to people that were literally wearing baggy pants. It actually took place in Shreveport, Louisiana. And the ordinance that they created was it was illegal to wear saggy pants. There were 726 arrests for violating that law during the 12 years it was on the books. And 90% of them, it says, were black men. And it wasn't until when a police officer shot and killed a man named Anthony Childs while trying to arrest him for wearing saggy pants that the law was finally repealed. So it took somebody's life because the man didn't want to be arrested for wearing saggy pants. Are you kidding me? So let's start arresting women who don't wear bras. They just have saggy, walking around. Let's arrest them. What's that look like? You mean to tell me that they can't decide? Now, I don't agree with these people wearing saggy pants. I think it looks asinine. It looks dumb. That's just my opinion. It's not the way I dress. I mean, there's a lot of ways that people dress that I don't care for, but it's their right. It's their prerogative. If you want to arrest them for indecent exposure, or you want to give them a ticket, not arrest them, but give them a ticket for it because that is a law, then fine. Give them a ticket for it. But what in the world are we trying to do? And listen, that is what it can cause issues. It can cause issues whenever a police officer is trying to arrest someone for something so silly, they're trying to enforce it. It's absolutely insane. I'm reading this other one. In 1994, they had what they call a crime bill. And it says that this not only increased the number and length of incarcerations, but there was more funding that went into building jails and prisons. And it says also the possibility of early release was reduced. These measures increased the amount of taxpayers' money invested in enforcement and led to the disproportionate number of incarcerations among African American men. Its effect on public safety was minimal. Again, the government trying to do things. They think they're smarter than everybody else. And listen, is there reform in some of these things that need to be happening? Yes, things need to take place. But this guy even says that mandatory minimum sentencing has caused a lot of issues. This kind of goes back on a thing that I was saying earlier. Are you telling me that, if you just, every situation is different, there is no doubt. Every circumstance is different. But at the same time, we have got to understand that when you break the law, there is a consequence for that. And maybe there should be a minimum sentence on certain laws that we break. I don't think there should be stop at wherever and collect $200 before you go to jail. No, I think you should just go to jail and you should serve whatever time the law states. And when you do that, you're going to see people that are absolutely going to think about whatever crime they're going to commit. When we start enforcing it the way it was supposed to be enforced, and they couldn't, pay an attorney. But guess what? You start doing that, now attorneys aren't getting paid to defend criminals. And it's a money thing. I have a good friend of mine, Brian Nieves, who has the Patriot Enclave, who has his own show every single day, Monday through Friday, I should say, from 3 to 5 on this same radio show. He says, follow the money. All you got to do is follow the money, and you're going to find out where you at, where it is at. Follow the money. Here's the way I look at this. And maybe this is so crazy off my rocker, but I'm just going to put it out there anyway. People, if you try to enforce, so the only way you could really maybe work some of this out is if you had an actual trial for every single thing that happened. I mean, really, your fate is in a judge's hand and in the attorney's hand. But what if you went to a trial where you had 12 people sitting on there that you presented your case to, and then that jury made the decision? Well, first of all, you'd be taking a lot of people away from their jobs that, don't really have the time or money to be doing that because you don't get paid to do it, and you have to do it, jury duty. Thankfully, I haven't had to. I think the reason is because I believe in the death penalty, and maybe they don't want me to, get a case where I would believe in the death penalty. I don't know. But either way, you have people that have past experiences. You have people that have confirmation bias. You have people that are emotional, and whatever else might alter their view of the crime. I mean, we're literally putting the hands of somebody, the life of somebody in the hands of others. I wonder if there's a way, and again, this is far off the rocker, but I'm just throwing it out there to see if I get any bites on it. But what if there was a way that you could generate some type of robot that literally you could program that robot with all the different laws and maybe scenarios where it could compute without any emotion being involved, without any confirmation bias being involved, without any experience whatsoever, that could actually give a true judgment of what the crime was per the law. Like my example is this. Think about in sports. We didn't have instant replay back in the day. But, the referee made the call. He did the best he could. And there were times he was wrong. He costed the game. He costed the Super Bowl. He cost whatever it may be. But that's the way it was. Now we've got replay. Now there's certain things within the replay so they get it right, which I kind of like. I kind of like the fact that, hey, if you want to be, if you want to try to understand, but still, even when the replay happens, if there's not indisputable evidence that proves that the ball didn't hit the ground, or the guy didn't juggle the ball, or the person shooting the basket foot wasn't on the line and out of bounds. I mean, if you don't have evidence of that, definitive evidence, then the call would stand whatever the referee made. So there's still error there in some way, shape, or form. I don't know. I'm just spitballing. I just get extremely frustrated with our system and just how terrible, people get off of their crime and they just keep doing the same crime over and over. And jails are so full, and, the poor police officers don't have anywhere to go with people because our judicial system is definitely broken. I think we can all agree on that. Well, anyway, send me your thoughts. I don't know. I want to kind of switch gears and end the day with some useless, fun facts. I know some of you guys, you may like this, you may not like this, but, useless, fun facts. We got a couple minutes here, and I'm just going to read. I mean, there's so many different ones, but let's just read a couple of these. Try to get one. Taco Bell was named after its owner, Glenn Bell. I don't know how many knew that. Not really a fun fact. Here's one I found really strange: is you can't hunt camels in Arizona. I didn't even know they had camels in Arizona. I mean, does anybody else know that there's camels in Arizona? I did not know that there was, but it says right here, while we'd hope you wouldn't hunt down a camel even if you did see one, you should know that in Arizona, it's actually illegal, according to the County Bar Association. And while this might seem like a useless law, it was once totally necessary. And that's because camels did, in fact, populate the Arizona desert back in the 1800s after they were brought to the states by the U.S. Army. That's weird. That's a fun fact I didn't know. I didn't know camels were brought over here by the Army back in the 1800s. It's kind of interesting. Let's see what else we got here. This is a strange fact. It says here that the inventor of Pringles is buried in a Pringles can. So his urn is a Pringles can. I kind of like that idea. That's pretty creative. He probably spent his whole life. Frederick Barr, I guess that's how you say his name, in 1966, he developed the ingenious idea for Procter & Gamble to uniform stacked chips inside a can instead of tossing it in the bag. He was 89 years old. Pretty interesting. Here's one. How many of you get kidney stones? Oh, man, I don't wish those on my worst enemy. I've had a couple of them, and I'm telling you, they are painful. And I know women say, oh, it's a lot like having a baby. I don't know. I'm not a woman, but I'm going to tell you they're pretty stinking painful. But here's something to help you pass a kidney stone. It says right here that riding a roller coaster can help you pass a kidney stone. After multiple people claimed that they had passed kidney stones while riding Walt Disney World's Big Thunder Mountain rail ride, a research team from Michigan State University decided to take a look at it. And in 2016, they conducted a test using a model kidney that they found that was 64% successful pass rate for those seated in the rear of the roller coaster. But the number was just 16% for those who seat in the front. I like the back better personally because it whips you through the ride, and I feel like you get a lot better ride of a roller coaster. However, hey, if you got a kidney stone, ride one of those roller coasters at Six Flags or wherever you want to go at Disney World or Disneyland, and your kidney stone evidently will have a 64% chance of success passing if you ride in the back seat. Ladies and gentlemen, you don't get information like that anywhere. This is Unfiltered Radio Show with Jason Gaszak. I'm so glad you guys joined us. It's got to go. It's the end of the day. I'll see you guys next week. Have a great day today. Peace out.